I am filming this video at my parents' home in Montreat. It was my bright idea to come here to film this video because this place is very special to me. Of course, I forget that I don't have the production help of Andrea and Rachel and Meredith, and I came without that whatchamacallit that holds the iPhone so it stays still. But you know how we ministers are. We have a way of turning things into positives, to put a spin on things as if we planned it all along. So in keeping with the home movies theme of these videos, I've decided to give a shaky amateurish quality to the filming so that I can honor that theme. I'd like you to know about why this home is called Winrig, and I'd like to tell you that story. Or better yet, I'll let my father tell you the story.
Beginning in 1951, Jane and I, recently married, began a year of study at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. During part of that time, we lived at a quaint, lovely tea room outside Roanoke, Scotland, where hikers would come, have tea, hike in the Pentland Hills, return, have tea, and go back to their homes. The name of that tea room was Winrig, beautifully located in the midst of a flower garden. There was an apartment in that building that Jane and I lived in. It had an unusual name. It turned out that Mary Kosser, one of the owners' grandfather, had owned a piece of land called Winrig. It was in Scotland, land is measured in rigs rather than acres. And it turned out that the last rig in her grandfather's home had whin bushes, which produce a little berry out of which delicious jellies can be made. Hence the idea, he named that rig Winrig. We decided when we moved to Montreat, North Carolina, with permission of the owners, we were able to name our retirement home Winrig.
Fittingly, pictures of the family on his computer screen. I love that story. My whole family loves that story. My parents, in building their retirement home in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina, wanted to honor the happiness they had when they began their life together in what was their first home at that tea room in Scotland. My nephew, Andy, loves that story, and he was determined when he was on a trip to Scotland to find the place where my parents, his grandparents' life began. And so somehow he found the place where that tea room had been, found the family that lived there, and they said, you know what? Come on out to the garage out back. And they went to the garage out back and they recovered the sign, the original sign that advertised this tea room. And he brought it back to my parents as a gift. And they had it cleaned up and repainted and hung it on their house in Montreat. Well, now it needs cleaning up and repainting, but nevertheless, there it hangs, honoring a new home that was in some ways a homecoming. I am going to finish this video in my parents' beautiful sunroom at Montreat. Homecoming is also a major theme of the Bible. In an earlier video, I talked about the exiles, those who were in Babylon after the nation of Israel fell. And at the beginning in exile, they longed to go back to the way things were, to be in a nation again under a powerful king where they were the privileged people of God in the world. And of course, their memory was nostalgic because it was never liked how they remembered it. And as time went on, they were reminded by the prophets of why it was that the nation of Israel fell, the injustices, the decay within, and the fact that God was the God of all peoples of the world, not just of them. And also in exile, they discovered that they were at home with God when they honored justice, when they showed compassion, when they embodied a people that cared about each other, and not only about each other, but also for all the peoples of the world. And so their longing for homecoming, to go back home, became less literal and more metaphorical, more spiritual. I would add, personal. I think there is within each of us, just as there were with the people of exile, just as there are with people everywhere at all times, this longing to go back to some place in our imagination that is safe and accepting, a place where, despite our flaws and failings, where we are loved for who we are. And some of us, and I'm one of those, have memories of a time when we felt that way, at least episodically. And it represents for us the best of what we remember about home. I think Jesus tapped into that longing when he told the story of the prodigal son. That story is so rich, I could go on forever about it, so let's just cut to the chase. The son who thought he would find himself when he left home, when he got out of the sphere and realm of his father's love, where he could do exactly what he wanted to, found out that it wasn't that way. When he came to himself, he realized that he had no home apart from his father's love. And so he returned, full of shame, full of regret. And there is that beautiful moment when the father's outstretched arms welcomed him and he received the hug, that he realized that he was welcome again at home. That is called a homecoming that is defined by grace. That is my vision of heaven, and I think a biblical vision of heaven as well. To paraphrase the words of Frederick Buechner, heaven is that place where we have never been, but when we arrive, we realize we have finally come home. And so, as I say goodbye from Winrig, may your Christian discipleship, may your life be lived as a journey toward a homecoming, a home with God.